Welcome everyone to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. And what do we have for you tonight? Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the good and the bad. So, according to some numbers that recently came out, that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is the fastest selling Pokemon game for Nintendo ever. They just released some numbers that basically said that this game was like number one in Japan last week and has basically hit 10 million units sold in the first 72 hours, making it one of the fastest selling and on par to be the best selling Nintendo game of all time. Right. It's also being recorded that this has basically increased the number of Switches sold. An estimated 170,000 additional Switch consoles were sold in Japan alone because of this game. So that's really good, right? I mean, that is basically number one. It's beating out Splatoon. It's even beating out God of War Ragnarok and all this stuff. So in Japan, so it's making waves, but it's also making waves in a negative way. There's been a huge outpouring and backlash of the gaming community of releasing a completely busted ass broken game for a AAA title. Lots of calls for the game for refunds and all kinds of stuff like that. Basically, this game launched on November the 18th, and to have this big of a fanfare purchase it and then just be completely blindsided with a lot of pretty rough games, which, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the issues, a lot of it stemmed from the aging Switch hardware that just can't keep up. You know, they could try to develop and dumb down whatever for this, but gaming engines are just becoming too powerful for the Switch. But, you know, so they're complaining that there are super low frame rates in the game. Like sometimes it comes to a crawl, horrendous graphics pop-ins, characters and monster clipping issues, which that's, you know, coding issues typically in that, and some issues with Pokeballs and things that are causing scenery to disappear, making cameras go haywire. So as much as this is becoming the fastest selling game, it's also quickly becoming the worst reviewed game in the Pokemon series as well. So those are two really bad things to be two things to be known for on very different ends of the spectrum, right? Fastest selling game of all time, worst reviewed game of all time. Those two things don't typically go together in a series, you know, and like I said, to me, it just seems like you're coming into developers being forced to code and program to this antiquated hardware. We're getting very, very behind the times with the Nintendo Switch, and it just needing to be upgraded, you know, and Nintendo, I mean, Nintendo's on easy street right now is the way I look at it, because they're still selling Switches. I mean, you just sold 170,000 more Switches in Japan because of this game, and you're not having to do anything. You're not developing new hardware or developing new technology. You're just resting on the laurels of something you've already come up with, right? And Nintendo has got a bad habit of that. And I think it's time that they, you know, put the Switch to bed, come out with a new Pro, better hardware, you know. But that's just me, and I'm just one person. I mean, that console's got 5 years now, and even then when it came out, it was still a lower end console, right? It's not like the Switch has ever been like the pinnacle of technology, right? It's a great handheld console. I own one. Our entire gaming group owns one. But the games that I play on, they're limited to exclusives. And I don't have room to complain because I did not buy Pokemon Scarlet, you know, and all this. So that's not my game. Scarlet and Violet is not my type of game. So I'm not typically in it in the beginning. I may get it down the road when it's on sale. But we all know Nintendo, those games never go on sale until it's like 10 years old. So maybe I'll get to play it in 10 years from now. Maybe I won't. It just depends. But right now, it's got lots of issues, and it doesn't seem like there's come out with a fix yet. So, and people are being successful with getting their money refunded for digital purchases of the game. So, fastest growing, fastest selling, worst reviewed game in the series of all time. Bad. So, that's from gamers. I don't have an opinion because I did not play it. But Nick, what are your thoughts on this game, on this news, man? Fastest selling, you know, 10 million units already sold, and also worst reviewed on the series.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I mean, I don't have this game either, Scarlet and Violet. It is something I would play, but I just don't own it. yet. I think one of the things that really hurt this game is it's developed by Game Freak, who make a lot of the Pokemon games. They made Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think it's Arceus or Arceus or something like that. And that released in January of this year. And they also developed this game, which released in November here just recently of this year. So they had two 3D Pokemon games coming out in the same year. And I think that definitely could be what's hurting Scarlet and Violet. Because more than likely with Pokemon Legends, they were probably trying to finish up development of that game. And then once that got released, they kind of turn it to a skeleton crew and then focus and then push everybody over to Scarlet and Violet to finish up the production of that particular game. So of course it's going to be riddled with bugs, especially if Nintendo wants, there's no reason to release two full-fledged Pokemon games in the same year, unless that's something coming down from corporate saying we need two in the same year, right? Because I would suspect that that was kind of one of the things that we heard about when Scarlet and Violet was first announced, that a lot of people, was articles and things that people were talking about how we just, their Pokemon Legends just released and they're going to release another one within the same year. And that was kind of the worry at the time is it going to be up to snuff, right? When it comes out. Now, supposedly the game's really good besides the technical issues, right? It has a lot of bugs, glitches, technical problems that need to be worked out in the game. Other than that, the game is fun. The game's fun and fun to play, and that's why it's I think sold well, and from people that have played it, they seem to like it and enjoy it. It's just the bugs and the glitches and stuff that are getting in the way. It's kind of like, reminds me of Bethesda game, right? when we first get a Bethesda game, that's what Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is right now. You get all the fun bugs and everything. So I think for this game in particular for Nintendo, I do agree with the aging hardware of the Switch. The Switch is basically, I feel like, has met its limit, right? And the latest games that have come out for it is, Blade Chronicles and Pokemon Scarlet Violet and some other ones that have come out have really just kind of shown you that this is about as much as the Switch is going to be able to produce. I don't think we're going to see anything that's really going to go beyond what we're getting now with the Switch. I would be very surprised. It does happen from time to time, but I would be very surprised. But that's usually just new techniques that developers find, ways to kind of create things that look nice, but really they're using less resources and stuff. And this is kind of comes with development of the system over time, right? And so we might see stuff like that. But as far as what the Switch has to offer graphically and game wise, I think we've hit that limit. So hopefully Nintendo comes out with something new. They really need to, and they need to come out with something new before Microsoft and Sony come out with their next gen consoles. They need to kind of, they kind of did that with the Switch, and they need to kind of keep that off year kind of thing going, where they, release something new, and then like a couple years later, the Xbox and the, especially if they want to be separated out of the console war between the two, right? If they wanted to be their own thing, which it seems like what Nintendo's trying to do is become their own thing, right? Just they're not a part of the console war. They're just kind of doing their own thing. Then just release something new. I think it's time for the Switch to come out with a Switch Pro or some new console that really just gives us this graphical, like, awesome powerhouse. I would love a powerhouse from Nintendo. Like, just really, we've talked about this before, and we all agree that we would like to see Nintendo kind of go back to the two system, where they go back to having handhelds, but they have a home console, and that home console is just like more traditional, right? They don't need gimmicks and crap like that. I mean, gimmicks, I don't know. For Nintendo, it's like gimmicks don't really, you're Nintendo. You don't need gimmicks to help sell your system, right? You have the word Nintendo on it. That alone will get people to go out and buy it. So you can make a traditional console, just a box with a controller, and make it a powerhouse, make it something that's just really, you know, is awesome to graphically see and play. You know, I wonder if they're afraid to do that, because then they'll be seen going into the console war, right? Re-entering the ring, right? With Sony and Microsoft. Whereas right now they're kind of outside the ring, you know, just kind of doing their own thing. But if they do release some sort of powerhouse console, I think people will look at it as though now we're back to the holy trinity, right? Of Microsoft, Xbox, and Sony all fighting for first place. But I don't know. But I mean, this game is a good example of kind of the Assassin's Creed and the Call of Duties of a game releasing too quickly, one after another, right? I think if Game Freak would have waited till sometime next year to release Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, these issues probably would have been worked out. But clearly they had some sort of, I would assume, some sort of contextual agreement with Nintendo or whoever, that they had to release so many Pokemon games with, 2 Pokemon games within the year, right? Or something like that. That would make the most sense as to why they wanted to throw 2 out the door so quickly, since they're not even a year apart from each other.
Yeah, and the game is reviewing fairly well with reviewers. I mean, on average, I'm seeing like 3/4 scores, so 3.5, 4 out of 5, or 7.5 out of 10. But IGN gave it like a 6. But the reviewer scores are like horrible, like 2.7 out of 10, and things like that. And
that's the reader scores, or the gamer
user
scores,
score.
or whatever, users.
Yeah, user scores. On Metacritic, that's user scores, right? But if you go to like Google and look at Google scores on it, and Google scores giving it a 2.7 and stuff like that. So it's not faring very well with users. And it's probably because users will put more time into it than a reviewer, right? I mean, a reviewer's got, umpteen things to do, and now they're just playing the game and getting the gist of the game, and they're probably not running into as many bugs or things like that. But reviewer aggregate score on Google is 2.7 out of 2,500 reviews. I think Scarlet was getting a 2.9 user review score based on 2,100 review, 2,140. And it had like a 3.4 on Violet, but that's only 1,100. So, it's not doing so well. That's out of 10 people, not out of 5. So, it's getting bad scores, and people are asking for refunds. To me, this kind of goes back to AAA developers need to stop putting out broken garbage on release. Hold the game back, Do what you need to do to put out a quality product, and stop having us pay to beta test your games. Stop having us pay to stress test your game, because that's really what it is. The game is not holding up to stress testing. There's a lot of people in it, can't handle it, and it's crapping out, and people are pissed. And so you went from a huge, fast-selling game to killing your ratings, killing your overall review score. I don't think the risk is worth it. If it was my company, I'd be like, this is hot garbage. Back into the oven you go for a little bit more bake time, But these people are too worried about something. I don't know. The people who want to play your game will play your game regardless of if you put it out now or a year from now. If it's not ready, it's not ready. I mean, yes, people will be upset. People will be mad. More people will be mad if you put out a broken game than if you delay it. I'm almost certain of that. I don't like when a game pushes. I really don't, but so be it. I can wait. It is what it is. It's not going to kill me to wait for this. It's not going to kill anybody to wait for it. It may suck. It may whatever, but I don't know, man. I feel that these game studios are just getting worse and worse about putting out a busted ass game. These AAA studios should be held to a way higher standard than you do some indie or non AAA studio, because they have the manpower and the money to put this thing through its paces. But they woke up and chose put out a piece of garbage. It's busted. It's got great gameplay. Everybody is talking about it. It's got really cool features and functions, but it just doesn't play because it's busted. So how long is it going to take them to put out a patch to fix this busted ass thing?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, how will Sony perceive it, right? Well, they'll probably perceive it as a success because of the amount of sales, depending on the amount of refunds they get. But I mean, if people hold
mean Nintendo,
that,
yeah.
Or yeah, sorry, Nintendo. They'll see it as a as a success, and then therefore, that's the thing that sucks about that, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Like these busted ass games. The problem with these busted ass games is because they do come out busted, but they sell so many copies that the developers looks at, and the publisher looks at, this was a successful game, regardless, right? They only look at the sales numbers and not necessarily what the reception is online. I mean, I'm sure that's some of it, but if their sales figures, if they meet expectations or over expectations, then it's like, oh, well, this was a success. Let's make another one, right? Even though the game's like duct taped together.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they're selling millions, 10 million copies. I don't think, I would feel the majority of people are like, okay, it's busted, but I'm going to hold on to it until I can, until they put out a patch or whatever, or they just play through it. They just bear with it and play through it. But you're giving your gamers, your fans, a bad taste. They're giving a bad taste in their mouth of your game, regardless if you're going to patch it out or not, which you have to patch it out, or else you really are going to piss them off. But I think it's going to be a success for Nintendo because it sold 10 million copies in 3 days after release, and imagine what this thing is going to sell by Christmas time. Hopefully it's fixed by then, but still, these companies need to be held responsible for putting out garbage, unplayable garbage, but they're not. People still buy it. People stick up for this. Here's the thing is the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and enough players are so disenfranchised with it that they've basically affected the user review so far. Out of a score of 10, it's getting in the 2s and 3s. So kind of sucks. But like I said, critic reviews are keeping it favorable, 3.5, 4 to 7 to 8 in the normal score, in the critic scores. So I don't know. It will never end. I don't think. It's only gotten worse over the years, and Nintendo's Nintendo. They don't care what you think as long as you buy it, which any company's that way. Microsoft's done it the same way. They don't care what you say online as long as you spend that money. So really the way to affect change in this case would be majority of people, 60% higher, need to request a refund. And technically it would be better if everybody requested a refund, but that won't ever happen.
Nope. And I'm sure that even though we'll see online the number of requests being what we consider high due to the 10 million purchase amount, well, it's probably more than that now. The refund request rate will probably be like nothing at all compared to, I mean, you might see articles about it. People are requesting, asking for refunds in droves, but when you look at the percentage compared to 10 million, it's like 0.001%, whatever. It's like nothing. So even that's not going to make, I mean, it would have to be like you said, like 60% of out of that 10 million requesting a refund to really make a point to Nintendo and to Game Freak that, and to these developers and publishers that, hey, you can't just throw garbage out and expect everyone, all of us to lap it up. But we do, and that's why you continue to get garbage.
Yep. A lot of us gamers don't have any impulse control, right? We got to play it right when it comes out. So got to have it. Got to catch them all. So, all right. Well, Nick, got anything else on this one before we throw these Pokeballs out and try to catch that rare Pokemon?
Nope. Not today.
All right. All right. Let us know what you think. Have you purchased the game? Have you played it? Like I said, we have not played it. We have not purchased it. It's not really in our gotta have right now games. But let us know. Did you purchase it? Did you run into any of these bugs? Are these bugs being blown out of proportion that people are claiming about? I mean, they made a whole subreddit on it and everything. So there are a lot of people are complaining about it, but maybe you got lucky and you didn't have all those bugs. Did you get a refund? Let us know. Let us know down in the comments, As always, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you've made it to the end, why don't you subscribe for us? Help us get those subscriber numbers up. And don't forget to hit that bell for notification to get notified every time we put out a new video. And also like this video for us. And give us some feedback. We enjoy feedback. Negative or positive, the only way we can grow and learn is if you give us your feedback. So hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope to catch you in the next one.